Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
Does your warehouse waste time and money managing forklift batteries? Enersys can energize your operations with a customized solution, delivering the power you need while minimizing ownership costs. Enersys starts by analyzing your operations and then selecting from their comprehensive range of battery and charger technologies, develops a truly optimized system tailored to your needs. Enersys gives you the power to increase productivity and profitability. See how Enersys puts power in motion for you at enersys.com. With e-commerce off the charts, many small and growing warehouses are asking, how can I get ahead when my warehouse is barely keeping up? The answer is future-ready warehouse tech from Zebra Technologies. Warehouses can simplify and upgrade all processes, from automated inventory management to hands-free picking, with Zebra's tailored, scalable mobile solutions. They're simple and intuitive. There's never been a better time to upgrade for success with Zebra. How can your warehouse get ahead? The answer's in black and white. Get the answers at zebra.com/theanswer. That's zebra.com/theanswer. Businesses are retooling fulfillment operations, from warehouses to omnichannel, to meet new demand amid unprecedented labor shortages. 3PLs, retailers, B2B distributors, and others are turning to flexible fulfillment solutions like 6 River Systems to adapt and scale. 6 River Systems Fulfillment Execution System is an integrated solution that combines intelligent, cloud-based software and automation, including its autonomous mobile robot, AMR, Chuck. No costly or disruptive infrastructure changes, fast and easy associate training, and integrations with other warehouse execution solutions allow operations to meet labor challenges, increase efficiency, and enhance customer engagement. Go to www.6river.com to learn more. Go to www.6river.com to learn more.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. Today's episode, I am going to be joined by John Evans, and he is the Senior Customer Success Manager and 3PL Team Lead at 6 River Systems. And 6 River Systems, we've had on the show a number of times. We've been a longtime supporter from early days of the podcast, so we really appreciate them. And we're going to talk to John here about peak season, and we're coming up on peak season, and you know, in some cases peak season is all different times of the year now. It's definitely different than what it was maybe a few years ago. So we're going to talk to John a little bit about that, and he's going to tell us some of the tips and ways that you can maintain your service levels and also really be able to keep up with peak and types of seasonal demand. So John, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate you having me. I'm so excited to be here. It's really fantastic. So thanks for hosting, and I'm looking forward to talking about some peak season challenges, how 6 River looks at it, what I've been hearing from the field. Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll talk about some interesting stories. But yeah, I'm pumped up, and I'm excited to be here.
Definitely happy to have you on here, and happy to hear you're pumped up, and we definitely want to hear these stories. And someone told me too that you're a pro, so it's good that we have you here, right? So, you know, before we get into this peak season talk and talk about some of these challenges and how to deal with them, for people that maybe are not familiar with 6 River Systems and what you guys do, why don't you give us just a little brief overview?
Yeah, definitely. 6 River Systems. So we're a solutions provider for warehouse operations of all different shapes and sizes. We service 3PL customers. We service retailers. We service B2B customers. We've got wall-to-wall solutions. And so what are the wall-to-wall solutions? Well, we started back in 2015, a small team from Kiva Systems, which is now owned by Amazon Robotics.
Right.
The Kiva Systems executives came out of the AR acquisition and they said, hey, there's a huge market that's available for mid-size to small operations or small distribution centers where they need efficiency that Amazon and others are leading the charge with.
Right.
And so two of our executives, Rylan and Jerome, went to go found Six River Systems, where we provide autonomous robots. We started with a robot named Chuck, where we then have expanded our solutions wall to wall. So it's not just about the robot anymore, but it's about more cloud-based service offerings to improve building efficiency, attract and attain labor, decrease the time for new hires to get up to productivity, as well as to empower the associate to feel belonging within a picking workforce, to feel like they are a part of a larger mission that we then are able to grow and expand and to empower those operations that need to compete with Amazon.
Right.
So it's a whole suite of services that we offer at Six River, and we are growing. We got acquired by Shopify in 2019 to now build out a larger network of services for our clients.
So obviously, it's been great to see you guys evolve over time, and since that, we've been connected through the podcast and been learning about Six River and the growth and how you've gotten to this wall-to-wall fulfillment solutions and, very interesting things. And I think very creative approaches as well. Even like with the Chuck robot you mentioned, I actually utilized the online demo of Chuck with my students in my class to talk about, process improvement and how adding automation can help improve processes and things of that nature. So really definitely happy to have you on and to talk about some of these things. And obviously, we talked about working with small to medium-sized businesses and helping them to gain these efficiencies that some of the bigger guys like Amazon you mentioned are able to have more access to, in a sense, because of their capital and things like that. But when we look at these small to medium-sized businesses, and especially from a distribution fulfillment standpoint, I mean, there's a lot more that have popped up over the last couple of years, right? Because e-commerce has just exploded in a sense, right? So when these companies start to come online, some of them maybe they have a product they've come out with, and they're not necessarily have experience on the fulfillment and distribution side, and they're trying to navigate these different things, and so obviously one of the big things, and kind of I guess maybe you could call the holiday in a sense for the distribution and fulfillment world is always like peak, right? I say it's the P word, right? So, when we look at peak, traditionally we would see that, peak is like, okay, one time during the year, maybe twice a year, we have these drivers that whatever the business may be creates these peak like levels where order volume is just extremely high, right? So, but I think that some of that has changed a little bit, especially with COVID and now, kind of post-COVID in a sense, I guess we could say. Tell us a little bit about from what you're seeing and, what Six River is seeing. What does peak actually look like now? Like, what is peak now?
Yeah, it's totally changed. So I'm fortunate enough where this was going to be from a Six River standpoint. I joined 5 years ago, and so this will be my fifth season going through peak with some of our customers. And I can tell you what we experienced in 2020 and 2021 to a certain extent is completely different conversations than what I'm seeing so far leading up to 2022. Back in 2020 and 2021, it was red alert, all hands on deck. COVID has completely shifted the game where you can't get enough supply to fulfill the demand. Things were slow, shut down. Orders were coming in through the e-com channel. We were seeing a huge uptick in those e-commerce orders throughout our customer base. And so a lot of those e-com orders have that same day or next day shipping SLA. And so we're running around trying to flex up our capacity, trying to improve our operational efficiencies to our customers by approaching them about a whole variety of information. I mean, in 2020 and 2021, which is similar to what I'm seeing now this year, I mean, data is the king. So if you can get great data ahead of time, in months of time, you can then perhaps forecast what that peak season demand is going to look like. Like you mentioned, Kevin, I mean, earlier you were stating, okay, peak, typically we're looking at maybe a couple of weeks span in what we've seen in 2020 and 2021, and even before Black Friday, Cyber Monday being, the peak of peaks, and then that first week of December there being crazy volume as well. And that's really kind of what makes and breaks some of our clients. This is where they, hit their bonuses. This is where they hit their goals for the year. What we saw last year was a much elongated peak. I was seeing clients who were having earlier promotional periods where rather than mid to late November, it was starting in mid-October, even early October. I mean, I think we saw Walmart and Target mentioning that they were hosting earlier peak seasons or earlier promotional seasons all the way through October 1st. And so the rest of the field saw this and they said, okay, I'm going to start to promo earlier, and therefore the uptick in volume running through these distribution centers, we started to see at Six River as early as 10/1, which was right on the heels of back to school. Oh, wow. So we were then seeing kind of a even longer period where it was, okay, we're looking at now August, September, going all the way through the end of the year, where these buildings had to be operating at a very, very high level for long hours, for customer demand that they had unprecedentedly never seen before. And so it created this whole whirlwind of variables that, operations managers, general managers, vice presidents of supply chain need to kind of scramble to get through. Right. This year, I'm seeing the preparation is much, much better. There's been some lessons learned from the past couple of years, and the economic environment has definitely slowed down with consumer spending on the downturn this year versus years in the past. But what I've seen on the positive end is that, like I mentioned, planning has started in March. I got customers reaching out to me in March saying, hey, let's check out the forecast. Let's look at the data for the next 3 quarters so that we can make sure when crunch time comes into effect, I've got the labor plan that I want. I'm able to then go out and try to attract new workers to get ready for that traditional peak season. But also I have the number of assets in play. I've got the right operating hours. I've got the right staff, like I mentioned. There's a lot more preparation that's going into this year, in addition to some of the economic factors that may be playing as well, where so far, and I might get knocked for this, but it doesn't seem as much of a red alert peak is coming season this year as it has in, a couple of peaks past. And I might be listening to this recording in November and I'm saying, John, what were you thinking? You're totally wrong. But that's how it feels.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see because I think, and, obviously I have a lot of conversations through the podcast and things, and just talking to people throughout the pandemic and COVID, it was kind of we're seeing what our peak would be like in different parts of the year and earlier, and just like you said, it was kind of like everything was getting pulled in, and obviously because people were at home, and what are you gonna do at home? We can only play so many board games, right? We want to buy some new things or something like that, right? Or we can't even go to the store to get what we would normally get from the store. So it's interesting to see, and I think that, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. I mean, if we look at how you mentioned, it was kind of like a red alert situation, right? Trying to figure out how do we just get through this? How do we just attack this and keep up with the volume that, I think for a lot of companies maybe was unexpected in a sense. I mean, they were expecting somewhat peak, but from people that I've talked to, some people experience like way beyond like what they would have predicted or thought that peak would have been for like 2020 and 2021. So, with that being said, I mean, do you think having those kind of, in a sense, I guess, stress tests, right, for companies kind of force them to look at different avenues of how to attack these types of volumes, and that's kind of what's prepped them in a sense for this year? As you mentioned, it seems like they're more prepared and more in a planning mode than kind of just an attack mode, right?
Yeah. Completely. I think that's spot on, Kevin, because I can just recall one example where during peak in 2020, I want to say, we work with a huge retailer, focuses on home goods and housewares. So, plates and cups and anything that you would need for your kitchen or home for that matter. I remember I was their customer success manager, and I was working with their VP of operations, who was seeing that he was getting an influx of orders in real time for wine glasses, and he wanted to move those wine glasses from the West Coast facility to their Midwest facility, because based on the demand that was coming in, he needed to get that same day or next day delivery for his Midwestern customers or his Midwestern base. And so he was actively shuffling the cards during the middle of peak season, saying, where do I need to stage my SKUs, or where do I need to fulfill my orders from in order to meet that demand? So that was 2020, and there were thousands of orders that he was hand-picking to say, let's move them from the West Coast to the Midwest. This year, those forecasts and those demands, especially from retailers, are a little bit more clear. They're able to then work with their buying teams to get a better forecast of what seasonal SKUs are going to be the ones that they're most likely pushing out the door to then fulfill through the different network nodes that they may have. So that scenario in 2020, we've already gotten ahead of now in August of 2022, 3 months before we're expecting those crazy promotional periods, where now, rather than shuffling in real time, we're looking at just changing the network delivery so that we're partnering further upstream to meet the buying processes and the buying trends that this big retailer is expecting. So that's just one example of kind of how we're trying to learn those lessons from the past in order to go through those stress tests and go through those periods of time where it's just, you think, the world is falling beneath you. So then for next year and the year thereafter, you are flattening that peak spike, and you're reducing your risk, you're increasing your efficiency, and you're able to continue to hit those end of year goals that you sought out to at the start of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great story because, obviously, having to go through hand-picking orders and moving them around and doing all that shuffle is certainly something that's, I can imagine the stress and the anxiety of trying to figure that out and get it together. So obviously, it's pushed a lot of companies to think about their operations and fulfillment operations in a smarter way and bringing in new tools and things of that nature. So and one thing I think Six River does a good job of this is not, we talk a lot about automation and bringing robotics into the warehouse and fulfillment centers and things like that. But, we still need people, right? We still need people to make things go, even though we're bringing in tons of automation. And, obviously you mentioned the truck robot, which is a cobot in a sense. And, one of the things I think through peak is, you need to be able to empower these employees and your workforce and help them to be able to meet the goals that you need them to meet and keep up with the productivity that you need to get from them and help them do that type of thing. So how do you kind of focus on empowering the workforce and how do you help to not only, I guess, maintain the productivity, but in a sense, increase the productivity as well? How can you help companies do that through a peak?
We'll be back after a quick break. You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, no, that's exactly kind of what we sought out to do at Six River. That was our original mission statement. Since then, our mission statement has become make fulfillment faster for everyone. But our original mission statement was to empower the associate. So how can we empower that associate, make them bigger, faster, stronger, happier, less intensive work for them as they're out working these really long days, pushing around heavy carts or, having to lift heavy objects. It's the tool that was created was the Chuck, which is that right. Collaborative robot to help with that. And so some of the really cool things about robotics is that they aren't displacing jobs as far as the collaborative robotics marketplace goes. It's more of a empowerment to the workforce that you have, like you mentioned, to improve productivity, decrease training time. So we're finding that when using our robots, because we've got a lot of built-in training factors to the system itself. So pretend that you're a day one associate who just stepped into a warehouse and you've never been in a warehouse before. Maybe you came from some other industry. And so you step into the warehouse and you see this gigantic area, all of these shelves, items, barcodes, numbers. It can be a pretty daunting place, especially if you have no prior experience. And so customers of ours and operations have put in great training programs. I mean, I do have to, tip of the hat to those operations managers and floor supervisors who are onboarding new hires every single day in some scenarios to get those new associates up to productivity. Yeah. The beautiful part about the Chuck is that this helps those associates and this helps those operations managers to achieve that productivity faster because we've got system-directed user experience, meaning the Chuck is going to direct the associate through their workflows. Instructions are going to be on the screen. It's like a little, we call it a GUI, kind of like the size of maybe an iPad, that's going to give the associate colors, directions, prompts for what's to come next so that they can follow the Chuck and be able to do their workflow in a paced environment. So that's a really beautiful part about the robot itself is that, okay, I'm a new associate, I've come into this environment that I'm completely clueless on. Okay, all you have to do is follow this robot. What the robot tells you to do, this is your partner. What the robot tells you to do is pick an item. It's going to give you an arrow. It's going to give you a color. It's going to give you a location ID, which then all you have to do is match the color, match the bin, look at the arrow. It's also going to show you some lights on where to put it. You grab the item, you put the item into the robot, you hit the confirmation paddle saying, yes, I did get this item, and then the Chuck moves on to the next. So it's really an amazing tool to work alongside of these new hires. What we've been seeing, and I've been looking through the data for our customer base, and we're seeing that the time to productivity for a new hire is less than 7 days. It's literally less than a full week of picking where they're getting within 90% of an average picker. Yeah. So you could have, John could be out there for months and he's picking at 100 lines per hour, and you can bring in Bob and in 7 days he'll be at 90 lines per hour. Yeah. So it's a really incredible tool to speed up that process.
Yeah, and I think that's really critical. And even, I mentioned earlier the online kind of virtual demo you guys have of Chuck, and so obviously I've seen the interface and how it works. I mean, and it is super simple to learn, and like you said, it pretty much tells you exactly what you need to do and where something needs to go and what it's going to be like. And, I think that goes a long way to helping enable these employees to feel like, they're understanding the process like fairly quickly and getting comfortable. Because like, as you said, somebody coming in and maybe from a different industry. And I think that's probably oftentimes like the case very often now, because fulfillment and distribution is like eating up so much labor that's out there. And, there's just, honestly, from a worker standpoint, I think there's just a lot of opportunity if you're in these like pockets of the country where, we have highly densely amounts of warehouse and fulfillment centers. So, there's a lot of people coming in, like, as you mentioned, just never necessarily been in this environment before. And it can be overwhelming in a sense. For me, I guess, as you said that, I'm thinking about it, I'm like, well, I've been working in this, industry for like 11 years. So it's like, I see a warehouse and it's just like, oh, it's just a warehouse. But I think about like you come in and you see all these like different things and, you could be thinking like, in a sense, like, how am I ever going to figure out my way around here? And like, where are things and all this stuff. So, being able to bring that to the table and have them feel comfortable and like, there's an ease of use, like kind of right off the bat, I think is a huge thing. And like you said, 7 days getting up to at least 90% productivity is a huge thing, especially when we talk about peak, because oftentimes you're trying to get people in the door and you want to get them up to speed like as fast as possible so you can get that productivity for them. You don't have like a month or 2 months to wait for them to be at the standard level of the productivity. So definitely a great thing to be able to empower using tools like that and helping the workforce be able to achieve their productivity too. And I think it's also for the workforce itself is also like because you may be seeing that like, oh, well, so-and-so is doing these numbers and, I've been here 2 weeks and like, I'm not even getting close. Like you start to get discouraged in a sense, but, being able to get there in like a week or so is certainly a huge deal, I think, to the employees' confidence as well. And to, get them to want to keep going and keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah, I was on that same note, something that's super exciting that we're working towards as an organization is empowerment through gamification and making the system fun, showing your progress to your goal. So you could set potentially a goal every day and say, I want you to go out and pick 1,000 items today. And as that associate is picking, you can say, oh, you're 50% there, you're 80% there. Nice job. You made 100% of your goal today. Way to go. Like, here's maybe some sort of incentive for hitting your goal. I've seen a lot of customers who will use, gift cards or some other like perk program that they create to make it a fun environment for these new associates coming in. And they want to pick on Chuck. They want to be a part of that kind of competition in that game, but it's not necessarily a competition where we're like, shaking a stick at an associate saying, move faster, move faster. It's more so hey, nice job. Like, you're doing great. Here's your goal for today. How can we boost you to success rather than, you're too slow. So there's really, really interesting, cool things in the industry. This isn't just a Six River initiative. I think this is happening across collaborative robotics in general, and it's a really cool time to be involved in this growing marketplace because we are finding that, the labor force is aging, older employees are leaving. You're getting a lot of new, younger employees who have grown up with an iPad or they've grown up with, their iPhone, and they want to continue to kind of foster friendly growth through those avenues. And so, collaborative robotics is one way to do it. And with Chuck, we support that, and it's a positive push rather than a negative, hey, speed up type of a methodology. And we're seeing really awesome notes from the field about this. We've got many sites who are saying, okay, I had an associate who left to go get paid a couple extra dollars down at Amazon across the street. They came back in 1 month because they liked picking on this system. They weren't getting, their kind of their wrist slapped for not moving fast enough with Amazon. The working environment was just better, and they would prefer to use the collaborative system with Six River versus whatever Amazon was using and whatever culture and environment they were creating there. So, everybody has their pros and cons, but something that I really love about where I'm at right now as a customer success manager with Six River is that I'm getting stories from my clients saying, I had an associate leave, and a month later they were right back again because they preferred what we were doing here. So that's really cool to hear.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I think that's kind of it's a big testament to the solution itself, because the fact that people, in a sense, and the labor market for fulfillment stuff is like super competitive, and you're kind of in that small to medium size business size and market, and you're trying to be in the best area for your fulfillment distribution center. Most times that means that people like Amazon or bigger companies are also in that area, and they have a little more money to play with, I guess, in a sense, right? So you trying to like get labor and retain labor when you can't bump up the hourly wage to where Amazon and others are at is a difficult thing. So being able to provide an experience and that tech that really makes an employee enjoy the job and want to stay, I think is a huge thing. And I think your example is a great testament to that. So, with that being said, I mean, obviously, we're at Modex in March, and I think probably the biggest conversation, I think, from everybody there was just the labor shortage, right? Was trying to figure out how do we address this labor shortage, not only from the perspective of how do we get more employees in the door, but how do we automate, or how do we figure out ways to, just deal with the volume when we don't necessarily have the employee capacity to deal with it. So with that being said, I mean, how do you think that we manage seasonal spikes in demand, especially when labor is such kind of a fluid thing in a sense, and people are having difficulty with that? So how do you really recommend that you sort of manage those seasonal spikes?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's a big challenge. I mean, it's every single operator that I talk to. It's at the front of their mind, going, not only in peak, but now it's all throughout the year. And so, the way that we kind of look at this is that, when you are attracting associates, or when you're trying to bring in folks, or just retaining the folks that you already have, there are a few kind of tricks of the trade that we found that might be applicable to other customers here. And so really, first and foremost is figuring out how they fit within the operational workflow. So bringing in associates without a goal in mind, or without objectives in place to bring them up to that productivity. So I mentioned earlier, we were talking about the time to productivity for picking by using the Six River system. So we find this across other avenues within the warehouse too. So ensuring that your associates know, where do I fit in? What are my North Star goals being a part of this new team? Whether I'm a picking associate, whether I'm doing put away, whether I'm doing pack out, whether I'm loading trucks, foster an environment where they understand how they fit within the operation, and be transparent with what those goals are. You don't want somebody to not have a clear understanding of, what are my daily goals, what are my tasks that I need to get through on a daily basis, but also what are my larger team-based goals, or what does my manager expect from me? And so with collaborative robotics, or with any sort of system, you have a series of maybe an onboarding ramp plan, or maybe it's a board that you'll display with little check marks or stickers, where if an associate has finished training for XYZ things. You get a little sticker, you get a little board, and you can progress down the line. They want to see a career path. They want to see their objections being met and being clearly defined. I have one of my favorite, so not to go off the path here, but one of my favorite customers out in Southern California does this really well. They have a huge board at the front of their warehouse where they have all the different workflows within the warehouse, as well as each associate in the X and Y axis. And so as an associate is working, they immediately walk in and they can see, okay, what training have I completed? Have I completed, chuck picking 101? Have I completed RF put away module number 2? They've got a whole ramp plan that's clearly defined. It's displayed in a public area, and it's literally just a checkboard that associates can see. And so as a new hire, when you step into that, you say, whoa, I've got a ton of opportunity here at this warehouse, because I can see my peers doing different learnings, different trainings. They're expanding their tool belt within the warehouse, where that's not only going to make their warehouse more efficient, but it's going to build that associate's resume to then say, hey, I know how to pick, I know how to put away, I know how to build pallets to load onto trucks. Like, I've done all these trainings, and it can be defined through the training program that this customer in Southern California has put together. And they don't see a ton of turnover because there's that career opportunity that they've fostered within their building with the transparency that each associate gets. And so step in the door and say, wow, I really want to learn how to do put away today. They've empowered that culture to then go learn that, get that tool in your tool belt so that you're a better candidate in your own resume for whatever career direction you want to go into, and you don't feel like you're just stuck doing, picking all day long or whatever that may be because you haven't been trained on these other opportunities within the building. So I see a lot of that, and I think that that's a really, really positive people-first methodology to training and to attracting and to keeping people. The other thing with the system that we talk about is just, the reduce in the manual burden. Picking, pack out, replenishment are a lot of heavy activities, either, walk heavy or, weight heavy, where you have to lift and pull and push and, mark things down on a little piece of paper or maybe on an RF gun. With our systems, we're seeing that you reduce the amount of walking, so you're not as tired at the end of the day because it's a system-directed environment. You're not picking up heavy cartons or heavy totes because the collaborative robot is doing that movement for you, that heavy lifting for you. You're being more productive because you're getting the labor efficiencies by the smart systems that are being delivered back down into the way that the system is designed is to ensure that you're getting the most productivity, you're getting the best pick path, you're getting the most dense picks that you possibly can, the most dense putaways that you possibly can. It's all system directed, and so you don't have to make those decisions, you don't have to make those mistakes because the system has already covered that for you. And so we're finding that by making it super easy, get up to productivity fast, have a clear career trajectory, and use the tools at hand, we're finding that you're creating a happy workforce, you're creating an engaged workforce, you're attracting more labor because there's cooler systems in place. They've got robots versus pushing carts, and you're bringing people back for more. If they, decide, hey, maybe this isn't for me, I go somewhere else. Well, actually, this is not where I want to be. I'm going to go back to that previous environment.
Yeah, and I think a lot of great points there, and I think, being able to, as you said in some of the examples there, just give the employees the ability, not only through, not only for employees that have been there a while from a retention perspective, but also, employees that are walking in the door for the first time, being able to make sure it's visible and known that, they're going to be able to, as you said, grow and do different things and be able. And I love the example of that company you mentioned that has the huge board. It's like very clear, like where is everybody in their training progression, and you can see that, like, okay, people there is opportunity here and those different things. So I think that's a great tool actually for being able to bring labor in, because even I could see, in interviewing, potential employees, like just being able to just show them that it's like, this is proof that like, there is like growth here. There is the ability to learn different things and have flexibility in what you're doing. So I think all of that is really important in being able to help manage those peak moments and being able to get employees in the door, and not only get them in the door, but also, keep them in the door, or, as you talked about here, taking brief sabbaticals at other companies and coming back in the door. And I think that's a great thing to be able to set up that type of environment where people regret leaving in a sense because of what you've set up for them and empowered them in that way. So, we've talked a lot about the productivity, and obviously, productivity and maintaining productivity and keeping up with the volumes of peak is certainly an incredibly important thing. But, part of the reason I think that companies are able to get to a point of experiencing peak and getting more influxes of orders is because they've built up a great customer experience, and obviously the product is a huge part of that, of people wanting the product. But getting the product to the customer is one thing, but having the product be what it's supposed to be and of quality and all of those different things is hugely important. But when you start to speed up things and increase volumes and start to pump out more out the door, you run the risk sometimes of cutting corners on quality or potentially losing what the customer is expecting or used to from you from like a satisfaction and experience standpoint. So through peak and these higher fast-paced times, how do companies kind of maintain and even sometimes, in a sense, improve on the customer satisfaction and experience?
Yeah, that's a key message I've been hearing a lot about is, we want to be able to deliver that amazing customer experience with in full on-time order delivery. And you want to meet all of your SLAs so that your customer isn't sitting there, in their home waiting for whatever that order is for, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, whatever that is. And so there are a bunch of ways to do this, and what I've kind of seen in the past. So really, really cool kind of direction that I've been finding a lot of my 3PL customers are heading towards is these like custom experiences for each individual tenant or maybe merchant that they have within their warehouse. So this is specific mostly to 3PLs, where they want to have a specific box that's got their client branding on. They want to have special handling instructions that allows the associates who are handling the items that the client is ordering or that the customer is ordering in a certain way. So some special handling instructions I've seen, it could be anywhere from a hazmat material, it needs cold pack, needs to be shipped in a certain orientation, needs to be placed in a certain orientation. This creates kind of this unboxing experience for the consumer where they say, oh, not only did I get my stuff on time, but also the experience of opening up is really cool. I've got, the brand name on the box. I've also got, my material facing out at me. It creates kind of this unboxing experience that, I guess younger generations like myself kind of look forward to. You order a pair of shoes from Nike and you got that cool orange box. And when you open it up, both of your shoes are, whatever it is that you were looking forward to. And, we see 3PLs going in this direction a lot. This might have been something that retailers have been doing for a long time, but in the 3PL world, I'm seeing a lot of our customers that are moving to this custom packaging based on order type or order segment, with special handling instructions based on order type or segment or any sort of data that they're sending down or they're required from their customer to fulfill. And so it's differentiating for these 3PLs to go out and get these new brands within their building because they can meet these requirements that their customers are asking. And it's improving that satisfaction score. So it's not only just about delivering in time, on full, and obviously that's probably the most important thing, accurately. But also, I'm finding that there's definitely a trend within our 3PL community where people are asking for and demanding for more custom activity. That's really hard to do in old school manual environments. It's really a big challenge. There's a ton of change management that needs to go into that. Maybe you have to move infrastructure around, or maybe you have to add different pack stations, find staging areas to place all of these new totes or new containers that you're bringing in. So it's a big effort. But with robotics and with these new systems that are out on the market today, that change management is much easier. There's a lower risk of inaccuracies because everything is baked into the system. You're not relying on somebody to go out and make those decisions. Those business requirements are placed at the forefront. So whether that, it could be anything, placed at the forefront, and that's how the system's going to behave, and that's how you're going to get it 10 times out of 10 or 100 times out of 100. It's really reducing the risk of inaccuracies, and it's increasing the satisfaction of the client through these kind of value add services. I'm seeing with these 3PLs over the past few years, when they do implement a new robotic system, we're tracking the number of exception picks. So the robot itself will be able to report back based on what's happening at the pick face. Was there missing product? Was the product damaged? Was it the wrong SKU? Like, we're catching all of that at the pick face, so you don't have to overfill your pack out associates with mitigating those inaccuracies. So everything's caught in aisle in an accurate form. And I'm finding that over the past maybe 8 to 10 months, we're really month over month reducing these exception picks. A lot of my clients, if I look back through the data, are decreasing that every single month. There were some clients that were picking 10% of their orders were exception picks. It was really, really high.
Yeah.
Getting better and faster and understanding put away activity and being able to ensure that there is product at the pick face, but then getting the visibility through the system to log that pick accordingly, missing product, damaged product, or whatever, then creates a loop back where the general manager or whoever's in charge of the building gets a report saying 10% of my picks this month were exceptions. What's going on? That's not creating a good customer experience. Let's put some processes in place next month to reduce that. And we're seeing a reduction down to, there are some customers that have 0.5% of their monthly picks are exceptions, or even less than that. We're finding the trend and the standard by using the systems are going down and down and down and down, and it's by and large across the network that I look at, less than 1% of these picks are exception or mispicks. So you're getting quality, you're getting accuracy, you're getting really cool end customer experience, which is going to then enable more orders to be placed. You're going to be winning customers for the long term, and you're going to be able to then grow your building and grow your operation that way. So there's a lot to that, but I think that robotics is a really, really amazing tool to help you move in that direction, whereas some of the older forms might be a heavier and a bigger lift in order to eventually get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very key that you kind of mentioned in there about the unboxing experience, in a sense, right? And I think that's such a huge thing because, we look at, especially, since COVID, so many consumers have just embraced the ease of, just ordering things online instead of going to the store, right? And for many, companies now, they're losing that, typical brick and mortar experience, right? Where, you mentioned you would go to a store and, they have like a special bag or something, or maybe they tie the bag with a ribbon, and, there's that packaging experience that you get from the store. And, maybe in the sense before, Well, if you ordered the same thing from them online, like it's just coming to you in like a plastic poly bag, right? Versus like, you know, this nice fancy bag. But, you know, a lot of companies I think are recognized that, as you mentioned, and 3PLs are offering that experience, because that is replacing like that retail experience in a lot of situations. So it's kind of elevating the brand in a sense, and it is giving you a little more excitement, I guess, when you open that package. And I think that's pretty cool. So, you know, there's a lot to that, and obviously, as you mentioned, you know, being able to enable those things through newer systems and things of that nature certainly gives you a lot more competitive advantage, and being able to offer those things. And additionally, you know, I think it's huge seeing the ability to kind of, I guess, cut off those exceptions, as you mentioned, at the time of the pick versus later on, because oftentimes you'll see, just as you mentioned, you know, you get to the pack station and, you know, there's like a pallet to the side, and, you know, the pallet's just filling up because it's like, you know, it's just like wrong item picked, or it was damaged, or, you know, so whatever the case may be. And then later on, then like now somebody's got to go through that pallet and figure out, you know, what's going on, right? And it's just like a downstream effect where it just like keeps getting worse and worse, and it's piling up. But the ability to be able to address those things at the pick itself at that time, and then collect the data, I think is the biggest point there. Because it's one thing to, you know, be a picker and go and pick, and, you know, either the product's not there, or the wrong product is there, or, you know, it's the last two pieces and, you know, they're damaged or something like that. And, you know, maybe you call on the radio, the supervisor, and say, you know, oh, location, you know, A1 or whatever is, you know, there's a problem here. And the supervisor is, you know, addressing a problem somewhere else, and, you know, like, oh, got it. And then, you know, they forget or something. And then it's like, well, and then the next picker comes and goes, oh, there's a problem at A1. And it's just kind of like, you know, it's hard when you don't have like immediate data capture of an issue to be able to kind of keep up and address it in a timely manner sometimes, because you just have a lot of things going on. And, you know, we talk about peak, it's, you know, it's super fast paced, and there's a lot of things going on. And, you know, especially as small and medium sized businesses, it's not like you necessarily have the staff all the time, or the resources to be able to like, oh, just focus on issues. Like, but you got to focus on issues, focus on productivity, focus on making sure the employees are good, deal with employee issues as well, all those different types of things. So the fact that you're able to capture that data immediately, I think, is a huge thing in being able to continue to improve that customer satisfaction and experience, and the overall satisfaction, I think, in the operation itself too. Because even, you know, you think about the customer, and, you know, they might get upset because they get the wrong item, or they get something that's damaged that could have been caught earlier. But the employees get frustrated too, because they keep, you know, those things, they start to build up. It's like a snowball effect, and it's like, you know, it's like, oh, I picked from this location, you know, an hour ago, and I said there was an issue, and it's not fixed yet. Like, and now, like, I can't, you know, it's slowing me down. Like, it's slowing down my productivity, right? So I think those things are huge, and it's really great that you're able to point those out. And it's great that with the 6 River platform, you're able to capture those as well and see that data. And it's really interesting to see the impact of the data and visibility that you're seeing, that you mentioned, that, you know, these exceptions are driving down like dramatically in a sense. And I think that's a really, really interesting thing. So very interesting points from you, John, today about all of these things, peak, and what peak actually looks like now these days in our world. And it's really, really interesting to hear about how 6 River is addressing some of these things and helping their customers and companies to be able to really improve their operations and take it to the next level, which, you know, obviously taking it to the next level means that, you know, every year your peak is just going to get crazier, right? You're just going to get more volume. So you need to keep putting these tools in place. And I think you've definitely proven that here today. So really interesting to talk to you, John, about these things. And if people are interested in learning more about 6 River Systems, how can they do that?
They can check us out online. You can go to 6river.com, the number 6river.com, and that's where you can learn more about our system. You can get in touch with any of our representatives who can then walk you through, understand maybe more of your business challenges. how collaborative robotics might be a good fit, and just have a great business-to-business conversation.
All right, great. And we'll put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well so people can easily find it. So, John, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.